So here I'll use the letter F to represent the monthly fixed expenses, and then E to represent the expenses per border, because that's the variable part, referring to this piece here. And the hostel collects $1,600 per month from each border. So that means that revenue is 1,600 times the number of borders. So we have these two conditions here. I'll start with the first one. When the number of borders is 50, revenue would be 1,600 times 50. And then the profit would be this minus the expenses. So you have the fixed expenses plus 50E. And then I divide this by a number of borders, which is 50, and that would give us the profit per border. So that's the setup for this one. We'll have similar setup for the second case, which would be 1,600 times 75 minus F plus 75E over 75 is equal to 250. So I have my two equations and two unknowns, and I can use that to figure out F and E, and then answer this question. So if I look at this, the number of borders 80, the total profit is 1,600 times 80 minus F plus 80E. And there's no way for me to get to this directly without solving for the variables. So I'll just have to do the algebra here. So this, I'm going to multiply that. So 16 times 5 is 80. So it's 80,000. And then this would be 10,000. And that would be equal to that. So my first equation would be F plus 50E is 70,000. And then this one here, I'll be using a calculator here. So 250 times 75, that's 18. So it's really this. I'm trying to not write too many things, which I also do in the exam. But obviously you don't want to make mistakes here. So that's 18,750. So 1,600. Actually, we could have just factored out a 75, and then done the multiplication. Would have saved a little bit of time. So 1,01250. 1,01250. I'm going to subtract the top one from the bottom. I would get 25E is equal to 31,250, and that means E is, so I always know I'm on the right track when I get nice numbers. So that's a good sign. If this was 1145.28, I know I've made a mistake somewhere. And then, I mean, generally, but not always, I should say that. And then I can figure out F from this 50 times by just plugging it in. So 1250 times 50, and then minus 70,000. So again, I get a nice number, 7,500. And then I plug that in here. 7,500 plus 1250 times 80. And you can see that if I subtract it here, I just need to look for that difference, which is 350 times 80. So maybe tiny bit savings. 28,000, then minus 7,500, and I get 20,500. So a lot of work here. The answer is B. So, I mean, honestly, there may be other ways to set it up, but this is what made sense to me. And that's kind of generally how I do this. So you don't have to follow this exact setup. I mean, some of you might be thinking in terms of the profit where you're multiplying. This term is here. So just do what works for you and something that you can consistently apply. I think that's the more important part. This is just kind of how I do it, and I always set up things this way because it comes naturally to me. So make sure you figure out a consistent method that works for you. But yeah, the answer here is B.